Hey y'all, I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome to Hope Ignited with a very special episode coming up.
We are her biggest fan. We have actress Amy Yasbeck on the show today. You guys know her from Problem Child, from Wings, from Pretty Woman, and many other amazing movies, but she's also doing some pretty important work these days.
Correct. She is the founder of the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health, but they shorten it to John Ritter Foundation, as you will hear today, of course. And her reason for that is because she was married to the wonderful, late and great John Ritter, an absolute legend. We just got done interviewing her, and I have to tell you guys, you're in for a real treat. You're going to hear some stories that I don't know if they've ever really been told out in public about John and people that he admires, and then of course just Amy's personal experience with breast cancer thought was profound, and her thoughts. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So buckle up.
Yeah, we're even going to get into some of Hollywood's best kept secrets. It was a really, really great episode.
Absolutely.
Let's hop right into it. Enjoy Hope Ignited with Amy Yasbeck. You want to talk about the episode of all episodes.
I cannot believe we have this legend here with us today.
Very rarely do we get to have a guest that we are the biggest fans of, both of us. Usually it's your favorite, my favorite.
Yeah.
But this one was a long time coming. Help us welcome both of our favorites, Amy Yasbeck.
Yay, Amy. Applause.
Thank you. I have an audience here too. Thank you.
All of the audience, the live audience is
hallucinations.
Right. No pictures, please.
You guys have always supported me.
I cannot believe you're finally here. This one has been a long time coming, Amy, and it was kind of a divine thing. We were actually in the airport at LAX at one point, maybe last year, traveling for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we ran into a mutual friend, and here we are.
Yeah. The mutual friend, Meredith, is actually the president of your foundation, correct? Or what is her title
CEO?
exactly? CEO?
He is the CEO. Oh boy.
Hello.
Meredith Ford O'Neill.
Oh, I love Meredith.
And Ashley is one of those people who knows everybody. So when you go to the airport, you could be in LAX, you could be in Cleveland, whatever. Someone's going to come up to her. And so she came up to her and she started saying, oh, hey, Kevin, you should meet so-and-so. And so she's introduced me to Meredith, and she says she's with the John Ritter Foundation. I went, excuse me? And,
The what?
The what? Like, are you kidding me? And because, going back to immediately, my childhood and my brothers were big fans, and, just so many of these shows that we love.
Kevin, are you the baby of your family?
Yes, I'm
Isn't
the baby.
it obvious?
I'm the baby. So little Kevin,
How many kids are in your family?
Three brothers.
So you're three of three. I'm 5 of 5. I recently worked with Joel Murray, who's Bill Murray's little brother, and he identifies as 9 of 9.
9 of 9.
Wow.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
Is that a Catholic
You
family?
sound
Gotta be.
maybe Star Trek names, but
9 of 9.
So wait, so if and you told me how old you were, and I'm going to reveal it, 74. You look great.
Correct.
Just kidding. So you didn't see it when it was on TV. Originally, you saw look how big my hands look. Whoa,
No,
Troy Aikman, you're a football player.
My hug.
No, Kevin listened to this on the radio before TV was a thing, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm that old. Ashley likes to tell me how old I am.
Smoke signals.
But so you watch the reruns that were probably on after school, is that right?
No, I was watching them live. For instance,
No, you weren't.
I watched. Okay, let me go back. Here, let me tell you what I watched. No, I wasn't. Not in the 70s. More like in the 80s. My awareness of what was going on.
Those were repeats,
right? So Magnum PI. I wanted that Ferrari so bad. Quantum Leap. You were a guest on Quantum Leap. I mean, I absolutely love Quantum Leap. We watched every episode.
Bob Saget, who became a really good friend. And
No
really
kidding.
Good friend of the foundation.
Rest in peace, Bob.
Very much.
I thought
Wonderful
he was
man.
my actual dad for most of my life.
Yeah, everybody wanted to be.
Full House.
Yeah, he was my dad.
And Funny Stone Videos.
Yeah.
And then of course Wings, which is just your Casey Chappell Davenport character was the one that I think that I'm the most that impacted me the most. I love your character in that. We're gonna talk about that. because like that show
was a Karen before there was a name for it.
The show itself, when you go back and look at it was stacked with great actors. Like I cannot believe how many great actors.
A lot like
were on
this
that show.
podcast.
Exactly like this.
Yeah.
And so the question I want to ask you to kick this off here, when you go through and you're looking at your just extensive and amazing career, is like in that time period, 70s, 80s, it was the golden era really of television and especially sitcoms. And what was that like back then? Like, you're in LA obviously you were in LA. So, I mean,
not in the 70s. In the 70s, I was in high school, but graduated in 80, went to school in Detroit because my cousin, plenty of cousins there, did not graduate from college. Doesn't stop me from speaking at the Mayo Clinic at Yale, though, does it?
Preach.
No. Reach. It's called experience. Yep. And then I moved to New York. I was there for 2 years or so, and then came out to LA for pilot season, which I didn't know exactly what it was, but I did a couple pilots. And so I came out here in 1985. And so that's how, like, the first thing I did was a TV pilot for a show about, this is interesting now, it was Soviet Union. It wasn't Russia again yet. And it was a spy versus spy called Rockhopper, where we all had bird code names. I don't know. Rockhopper is a kind of penguin. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
And that did not go. But in those days, they would show the pilots that were shot for consideration in the summer as just like a special show. And they never made any sense. It was like a half hour where all this exposition, as they say, pipe, was laid about the show and the characters. And then there's just like no payoff at the end. It's everybody like, see you next week. And there's no next week.
Oh, did that happen a few times before some things started to click for you?
I think, that's the only pilot. Those were the days in that summer of 85 where they showed all the ones back to back. And it was like actors would get around. This is before you could record stuff. And sit around and just watch it. Because it was the only time they could see it.
Yeah.
The work that they had done was crazy. But yeah, plenty. I mean, I'm not like a pilot killer. There are several actors, no names, who, when they're in a pilot, you're like, oh, it's going to go. Goodbye to it. But that. And then I was on Days of Our Lives for like months of just a couple months.
The best part of staying home sick as a kid.
What?
Best part of staying home sick as a kid, watching Days of Our Lives.
Oh, did you like that? Is that
sure
what your family
did.
watched?
Sure did.
The best.
That and Maury. Yeah.
So what were you when you're in that, you're kind of like in that environment, like how are you making ends meet? Were you a waitress? Were you that cliche kind of thing, like just trying to scrape it by? Did you have a bunch of roommates or what were you doing?
Pilots, no. Pilots paid more than they do now, and the economy wasn't crazy. So I was able to do it. I was a hostess at a restaurant in New York before I moved out to LA, so I had a little bit of money, but yeah, it worked out perfectly. I do not have expenses check out, nothing.
All natural. I'm here for it.
That's for Meredith.
I love it.
Oh, look, it's my pajamas.
Yay!
Blew it.
You're a star.
Cozy.
When was the first? What was the first thing that hit for you? Where you went, oh man, some stuff's starting to happen now.
Oh, interesting. I mean, the thing is, you do like little guest stars on stuff, and that's great. And some people, that's their thing. But the first movie I did was a sequel to a movie called House, and it was called House 2, a horror movie. That was kind of fun. And then in the 90s, before Wings, I did a couple things. Pretty Woman, I had a little part in that. And I did The Mask.
Yes. These tiny films, like Pretty Woman, The Mask.
Indie films.
No, The Mask. Right. That one turned out, and it's like, you don't know. I ran into a lady who came up to me, and she had been the music coordinator for the Mask. And she was saying, can you believe what happened with that? Because we didn't know.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of technologies that were new, that they were kind of using this combination of practical effects, like the actual like makeup he would wear, with the special effects. So we didn't know if it was all going to come together, and boy did, because of Jim Carrey, not because of the director. It was terrible.
Wow.
What was it like? I mean, and this, I was going to ask you this in a minute, because I do want to go back to like what we would consider the golden era of TV. I think TV can kind of be trash now, but are any of those ones that you would love to see rebooted, whether it was something that you were a part of or just a show that you enjoyed back when TV was iconic?
I mean, I loved Cheers.
Same. Yeah.
Which was our same producers, Grub Street producers. I loved Cheers. Of course, I loved Wings.
Yeah.
I mean, John produced a show with Jamie Lee Curtis and the late, great Richard Lewis, who I loved, also worked with in Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is another movie. Called Anything But Love. And it took place in a newspaper newsroom, which now we're like, it's a what?
Yeah.
But it was so good. And the actors were so good in it. And like, you go back and watch it, you're like, wow, this kind of thing you could take and put brink. Amy Lee would probably do it again.
It'd be so good to see it. I mean,
off to the races.
I also feel like I've never seen you this excited to talk to anybody. Do you have like an Amy tattoo that we're not aware of that you're going to reveal on air today?
Yeah, I got one on my left bicep and Yasbeck on my right bicep.
I've never seen. It makes me so
Super
happy.
fan. So I'm going to rip the sleeves off here a little bit. Okay,
ask me anything. My life is an open sore.
Okay, so on Wings, I got to ask a Wings. I have to ask another Wings question here.
Ask a question.
I mean, my wife. We were talking about this.
My
wife Amanda. Shout out to my wife Amanda. She was a super fan of the show Monk and the great Tony Shalhoub, actor. We started talking about just the great actors that were on Wings. What was who impressed you the most from a talent perspective when you were working with them on that show?
I don't think when you're doing it, it's like a talent perspective per se, because you are all in it and you're in that world. And when I came on, everybody's characters were very established. I was only on like the last 3 years of it. Only on the last 3 years. It's a lot. But I came in on like season 6. But of course, Tony, who I loved, and Tony and I immediately bonded because we're both Lebanese. And my father, as many first generation people, although his family actually was in Canada, it wasn't as in the old days. It probably wasn't as fashionable or whatever to kind of propagate your culture. And even though the food and everything, my dad didn't speak Arabic. I mean, he spoke Arabic, but he never taught any of us 5 kids. And so Tony would, because both of his parents were from Lebanon, or his parents' families, that, it was cool. So I got like a really kind of he's my homeboy. And we're still very, very close. And he has attended my foundation stuff and all, which is very cool. And Steve, really cool. Steve and Tim, of course. All of those. I never see Crystal. I don't even know where she is. Try to track her down. I think she's just a civilian somewhere living her best life, I hope.
Yeah.
She's probably doing it right.
Do people kind of stay around LA, or they just disperse, or what do people typically do?
LA and New York. Tim lives in New York.
Yeah.
And Becca Shaw lives in New York. Tony lives in New York. They do a lot of theater and stuff. And Tim, and Steve lives out here. His family is here, and he works in Chicago on Chicago Med, but comes back and forth.
Yeah.
That's a good show. That's it's a good show. I want to know more about Mask. Okay, I am married to a Jim Carrey. Like, he wakes up and he thinks he's funny, and he goes to bed and and it's so exhausting, and the kids think he's so, and I'm like, I can't be, like, it's so hard to be around somebody who's funny all the time.
Yeah.
Is he like that? Is Jim Carrey like that to you? Like, was there ever like he's just chill?
he's very chill. He's been chill for about the last 5 years, if you've noticed.
You're right about that. Yeah. More hair and a lot more chill.
For sure. Yeah. No, he's a very thoughtful guy, very intelligent guy, and sweet, and asks you about yourself. It's not all about him. He's a very gracious guy. I love him a lot.
That's good to know. That's interesting. That's something you probably wouldn't know. Yeah.
I think I think that's one thing that from my outside perspective that I've always seen. I've known a few friends who are comedians that people just think that they're on all the time, or that they're just funny all the time or whatever. And I think that's one of the things they tend to do is maybe not realize that this person is they're a person, they're a human being, and they have the whole range of emotions. And a lot of times comedians can be very deep, either thinking all the time, or they're very philosophical or whatever. And then they're able to go into their craft and do that on camera or being on stage. I want to talk about.
You know what? Well, no, I was going to say, just like people sometimes approach actors like they're approaching the character that they've seen the actor play. You know what I mean? They get that confused for better or for worse. Sometimes people play characters that are much nicer than they are, and sometimes the other way around, right? But it's like if you only see a comedian's special or their 10-minute stand-up, that's, even though they're not presenting a character per se, some do, right? Like Pee-wee and Paul. Yeah. But I mean, even though you're not presenting a character, you have distilled down 10 minutes of funny things that happened to you or didn't happen to you. So you're getting just that. So an audience wouldn't know the rest of it. And that's all they would have to base it off of. Unless, the actor or the comedian goes absolutely rogue, gets Me Too'd, then they're like, oh, they're too much of a person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or too much human frailty there. I accept this or I don't, whatever. But it makes sense that whatever the audience is given, that's what they have to create their image of the person. And then
a fine line.
Fill in the blanks. Yeah.
You fill in the blanks, or sometimes you see people on talk shows and you're like waiting for them to be funny and you're like, oh God, they're boring. Or you're waiting for a serious actor to make you cry and you're like, oh my God, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that because that's not the work that they have either decided to put out there or have been given the opportunity to.
Yeah, that's good. And we would be remiss if we didn't just say we're with a real life mermaid. You are the actual Ariel. Talk to us about Splash 2. I want to know what it was like to be a real life mermaid.
Itchy. The tail. It was great. So I did I was tasked with being Madison the Mermaid in the TV version of Splash that actually was a pilot, like it was going to be a TV series. I don't know how they were going to do it, but whatever. And it didn't go, but it turned in, it was the Disney Sunday night movie, which was a thing forever. It was a staple. And then it went away. And then it came back with Michael Eisner, in 87. And the first year that it came back, and it was 7:30 at night on Sundays.
Yeah.
Hey.
Michael Eisner instead of Disney, Walt coming out, and we're like, blah. But anyway, love you. He was great, but it was a little forced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was old tradition from when I was a kid. But the Splash movie, TV movie, was in 2 parts. It aired an hour apiece, 2 consecutive Sundays. And it was so much fun to make.
Yeah.
I've always been a mermaid. But it was a lot of, we got the TV version of filming it. We weren't in the Caribbean or anything. We were literally in the living seas at Epcot Center. By that I mean me, with the sharks and the sawfish with the crazy teeth and everything. It was fun.
That's wild. That's some really good behind the curtain knowledge there.
Behind the flippers.
Behind the flippers, yeah. With
do you have your flippers like hanging up for just old time's sake in the closet?
Do you wear them on Tuesdays? You wear them on
Tuesdays,
or Fridays?
My flippers, you mean my tail?
Yeah, your tail. Yeah.
No, it's the mermaid community is probably somebody bought it already. It was the guy, I can't think of his first name, last name, House, who had made Daryl Hannah's tail. It's like it's gorgeous in person. You can't believe it. I mean, it's like scales and everything. It's a big deal. Those tails kind of things go for a lot of money.
There's a black market for mermaid tails.
That's crazy. I thought you were joking when you said mermaid community, but you know what? I believe it. I believe it. There is, I'm sure.
You don't know about this?
No, I didn't know there was a mermaid community.
We just learned about feet photos. We're way behind. Like we're we're learning.
I have such a bad
flipper
rating
photos
on
in this
Wiki.
case.
There's a site called Wiki Feet, which is supposed to be non-erotic.
That's where I know you from.
You do?
Yeah.
I have a bad rating on there. My foot review literally says, I hear she's a nice person.
Well, yeah. If these toes could talk, yeah.
Toes could talk, they would go, kill me.
Right. She's a really nice person, though. We got to get into problem child because the problem child era, that was where, like, that's how I learned to love you and just fell in love with who you are as a person. And of course,
that's crazy. I played such a psycho.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And now I have 2 problem children. But
identify.
Yes. Yeah. But then let's get into John and you guys meeting. And I think that's just such an important and fun era to talk about.
Yeah. So the last gasp of the 80s into the early 90s was Problem Child and Problem Child 2, which is another thing. We never thought that would be a thing.
Yeah.
Really, that script, we're like, oh. And then, I mean, just, I was part of it, but the actors, John, Jack Warden, even little Michael Oliver, who was adorably devilish,
Yeah.
It was great. And the birthday party scene, there's the little girl that gets mad and she throws all the gifts in the water. That is Colby Klein. That's Richard Klein's daughter. Richard Klein, he played Larry in Three's Company.
I didn't know that.
No kidding.
I did not know that.
Come and knock on my door. Yeah. Okay. One thing I always wanted to know, I mean, I was kind of in a way, I guess, setting this up without realizing it when I was asking about the depth of comedians. The world knows John from just one of the all-time greats. I mean, I watched Three's Company all the time. The most iconic scenes. My brothers and I would reenact scenes. There was one scene where he was
to see that.
Well, there's one scene where he was trying to record, I don't remember exactly what, but he was trying to record this bribery and he's like, sniff bribery, take one. And he had a tape recorder in his pants and he was kind of having to hold it up, to get the guy to talk into it. And, just that kind of thing where he was doing physical humor.
Awkward physical comedy.
Comedy. When you were, when it's just the two of you guys, what did you do? Did you have a thing that you knew you could make them laugh?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Besides that's one way to make people laugh. What was a thing that you did that you knew, did you have a character or voice or something where you could make him laugh?
All of them. No, he would do, yes, we had some. Are you talking about role playing?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
No, but he was so funny. Here's the thing, not funny all the time, but the family and I were at his whim. We'd be part of a scene and without our consent.
Really?
Where the elevator doors would open and we'd be in the elevator doors would open, somebody would come in. And as the doors were opening, John would scoot to the other side he wasn't with me with his hat pulled down. So it was it's not him. And then he would start to hit on me or bother me to draw that other person into this improv that they walked in on. Very awkward thing, And so, I mean, he would do it with the kids too, or just be a guy that he would just pick up these little character cues from it was extremely good audience of when he would go to see theater, go to see music, but also just of the world, just how he observed people. And so the reason I think that he was so good and why people related, because there are physical comedians where you go, okay, yeah, we get it. Sit down, go back to the kids' table.
Yeah. Yeah.
But John is because they were all rooted in somebody he had seen walking down the street or tripped over a garbage can or something. And then he would make it into basically art.
Who do you think that John would have, over the last, say, like 20 years, that John would have really admired their comedic acting ability?
So many people. I was lucky enough to be the one to introduce him to Jim Carrey, so that was fun because that was like Jim Carrey meeting John was like when John met Jerry Lewis, which I was also there during that, where it's somebody you could tell that they had, if not studied, just absolutely by osmosis absorbed. Do you know what I mean? Lots of moves and things. So everybody, all of the physical people now, I mean, Jack Black especially, and he loved Will Ferrell, because these guys were around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And John always able to kind of pick them, like that guy, that lady, this one. He knew, like the first time he saw Sarah Silverman, he went, oh boy, force of nature.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like and even the hosts, like Jimmy Kimmel, he met Jimmy a long time ago and just went, that guy's got it, because he has, no matter what you think of him, and I happen to love him and love his point of view and things, but there's humanity under there. Like if Jimmy Kimmel's sad, he chokes up.
Yeah.
And that has to be under there. So you're not just kind of a clown, like a robot clown. Speaking of robot clowns
with flippers.
Yeah. Well, we know he didn't lack discernment. He married you, obviously. So he knew how to pick them. But one of my questions for you, and something that like even during that time period, something that really always stood out, I remember my mom talking about this often, but was just the strength that you had during such a hard time. And it didn't mean that you weren't sad and that, what everybody saw, what was projected, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. But, we work in a very heavy industry. You do too. The healthcare space and just navigating people through very difficult journeys is something that we're all privy to, and I feel honestly blessed and called to do because it wouldn't be for everybody. But I just remember how strong you were. And I remember that like, you were
again. You were seeing my best 10 minutes.
I know. Mm-hmm. I totally know that. Mean? But
so projecting that, and it wasn't even you can't project strength. People see right through that
for sure.
But it's mission.
Yeah.
So people saw the mission.
Yeah, I mean, you were what I mean by that is like, to be able to take something like that to champion such an amazing cause for good, like where did you find the adversity for that? Like you had to, it's almost like, and we feel this way sometimes, you feel like you have to become an expert overnight to be able to like talk about something. But at the end of the day, you're just talking from your heart. That's why you're so good at what you do. Yes. Like where'd you find that strength?
I think, again, for me, I don't think of it as a strength, maybe more like a talent. Like it's not something I can develop or whatever. That's just kind of how I am. I mean, it might have been installed early, certainly. And as I particularly mourn the passing of this beautiful Pope, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
In Catholic Church isn't perfect. No pope, no human is perfect, but that's what this guy was talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody has faults. Everybody has doubt. Everybody has. And I was raised Catholic. And for me, it was always just about those less fortunate or whatever we were saying in those days, but also poor doesn't just mean you don't have money and means. You might be poor. You might not have friends. You might not have fellowship. You might not have information. You might not have doctors. So to fill people up in a way that they can advocate for themselves, that they have the right information, and that they don't have to always lean on. Don't always have to lean on priests and doctors and politicians, but to be able to have a sense of themselves when they are ill of spirit or health. To have a place where they can go, and I would be able to promise them this website, this John Ritter Foundation, in the same spirit of John, which was he loved people. He loved people. Everybody was equal in his eyes. And, anybody who worked with him or knew him will tell you that. But to be able to have a place, a website that's not just words, but it's populated with people with real experiences, right? From the CEO, the founder, to everybody has, a really deep understanding of the need to understand what John passed away from, which was a thoracic aortic dissection, which was not as widely studied as it should have been. And we still are trying that. Not as researched as it should have been. But there were people in those fields who understood how important it was, how often it was missed, how it devastated not just the person, but families, caregivers, and like the whole community. And once you know that, you can't help but try to alleviate some of that loneliness and sadness, and to a greater degree, misdiagnosis, not diagnosis, because just like breast cancer, and I had breast cancer, and I was very lucky that it was early diagnosed. Very lucky. Yeah. And so that's what I have in the community of thoracic aortic dissection and breast cancer. Like a lot of things, early detection is it.
Yep.
But you have to explain to people why it's in their own power that they can do that. And if they hit a roadblock and somebody goes, "Oh, you're too young for this, you're too whatever to get this," you go, and you go to somebody who understands. And that's where we can help.
Self-advocacy.
So just knowing that I was able to, in my mind, like building, like where would I want to be? Where would my family want to go? And didn't have that. I found the best doctors in the world for this, the best surgeons, the premier researcher, Dr. Diana Milowitz, who is now with the John Ritter. Her lab is now called the John Ritter Research Program in Aortic and Vascular Diseases. So to be able to know that I couldn't do it by myself and to reach out and to build a community, I think part of that came from church.
Yeah.
Of seeing how that works. And part of it was just straight up science, and to be able to translate that to lay people, which is also what you say when people are not clerics in the church, but to make it more accessible for people to be able to keep their families safe. And that's natural. I don't know what, thank you for saying strong. I was not strong. I was all up in the old sobbing with the Joni Mitchell and the candles and it was all happening.
Yeah.
But I also had a 5-year-old child whose dad passed away.
Yeah.
You have to be able to demonstrate in a way that your life's not over just because your dad is gone.
Yeah.
Hard. I'm still working on that. The whole family's still working on that, because there's developmentally, grief is different at every stage in your life, and especially if you've lost somebody when you're a child.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And for John's 3 big kids, my stepkids who are loved and adored, we all of us got 6 grandkids. I think we understand that the family is the family, but the family of man and woman is where our outreach is. And it's international. We've done terrific things with our partners and just individually on our own, and really built it. So I think it was just the strength part of it is just not giving a crap if somebody says no. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And self-advocacy.
It's like, what? Yeah. Like, oh, you think this makes me sad? Wait to see what wait till you see what I've been through. Wait to see what this guy's been through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And to be able to gather kind of a strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers. There's strength in information is power.
Yeah.
Yep.
So being strength adjacent, I think, is good enough.
Oh, that's good.
Like Ritter's Rules and like Aortic Academy. These are all things I experience on the website.
Along those lines,
Yeah,
Amy, what is an example of a choice you made along the way to infuse John's spirit into your foundation?
again, hiring Meredith, Jen Basurka, like people who knew him
Mm-hmm.
and people who come by his kind of personality and spirit naturally. That's really important because, you know, the minute you're in a discussion and Debbie Downer speaks up, you just want to go, okay, let's remember what we're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just like, I think keeping it on track and letting, and we've lost quite a few people like Gilbert Gottfried and Leslie Jordan and Bob Saget, who knew John, but we also Holly Robinson and Steve Weber and like people, and I'm pulling on Garcelle Bouvet, who's my friend, to get involved. And so it's like people and Tony Shalhoub, people who knew John, bring that to them. That's who keep it authentic, I think.
Yeah. And you're a big piece of that. You know, you mentioned your breast cancer journey. I do think if you're okay, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that because there may be people listening or watching that are like, wait, what? I didn't know that about her journey.
Right.
Like this, it was during the pandemic, right? Can you take us back to that?
Yeah. It was during the pandemic. My surgery was January 6, 2022. And I was diagnosed, I think, in the October before that. And just a regular routine mammogram, right? And so there was nothing I could have felt. It was very, very small. Looked like little pieces of salt, little calcium, something. I went to, in LA, Bedford Breast Center, and a wonderful, wonderful surgeon, Heather Richardson. And it was, you know, the thing of, she's like, well, let me just take it, because she's so good. You go in there and she can do a biopsy right there in the office, but she's like, no, this is like a little bit of a tiny shotgun blast. We can't be getting this all out. I'm like, ugh. So there were some steps, having to get a thing and a thing with the thing and the thing. It was a lot. And you just kind of dissociate from your own boob.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right.
And pain. And I never was like, I hate you guys. You're my enemy. It wasn't like that. It was like having a sick child or something, where it's like, it's you, but it's not you. I mean, you do things in your head. And I know so many people who've passed from breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the old days when women wouldn't even talk about it because you couldn't talk about your breast because it was a breast.
Yeah.
You know
stigma.
what I mean?
There was a stigma.
And
yeah.
I had been talking about breast cancer in terms of awareness from the minute I started this foundation, saying, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but the women have figured out how to do it. There was a time before when you would hear somebody they'd say, oh, my sister has breast cancer, or my mom died of breast cancer. And you'd go, may her memory be a blessing. I didn't say.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
But now you go, you for sure just got checked, right? I mean, you know what I mean? We're ministering to each other.
Yeah.
Like, we know this and say this. And then people know like some statistics off the bat. And every once in a while, people will like say something wrong about the genetic thing or something they heard on doing their own weird research on something crazy. And then they immediately get shut down by the other women in the room. Mm-hmm. And men too. Right. But I'm saying because it's this thing of communication so beautifully. And you would, I'm talking about, before I was diagnosed, even when I was a kid, I don't remember people really talking about it. But like in the 70s and then the 80s, you started to hear it. And the first thing you would think of was genetics. Are you safe? Are you safe? Do you have it in your family? Like those discussions were so easy to have about that particular thing. And then when it became my turn, not with the breast cancer, but to be explaining about awareness of thoracic aortic dissection, and people would go, yeah, but like if you have blue eyes and you can get it from your grandmother and stuff. And I'm like, forget high school.
Yeah.
Just know if you're a first degree relative of someone who has had an aortic dissection or an aortic aneurysm, which is the ballooning in your aorta, mm-hmm. which is like that candy cane shaped, the biggest artery in your body that comes from your heart. If you're a first degree relative of this person, you are very likely at risk. And you need to get immediately an echocardiogram just to see if you have that aneurysm, which precedes it in a 99% of cases. I'm making a number up, but check that out. And then really delve into your family history. If you've lost somebody that, before the age of 50, 60, that it was like, oh yeah, it was a heart attack, but they weren't autopsied. You don't know.
Right.
Yeah. John's dad was a singing cowboy, Tex Ritter, and he died in his 60s from what was just kind of a signed heart attack. Grabbed his chest. He was bailing one of his band members out of jail in Nashville. This is true. And John's brother Tommy was there and saw his dad grab his chest, fall over. And he was like, an older guy who also smoked, which had little to do with it. But, and then the lore has always been everybody on the Ritter family dies of their first and only heart attack. Turns out those weren't heart attacks.
Wow.
Because John's brother, Tom, so John passed away in 2003. Tom Ritter in 2007 had like a TIA, like a mini stroke. And and he had been getting echocardiograms once a year since John passed away to make sure. And so were the kids, like all the first degree relatives, right? Which is parents, kids, aunts and uncles, first cousins. I like to push it a little bit.
Yeah.
But so when Tommy had this TIA and they were about to do a scan and brains, and they push dye. I went, I don't want you to push dye until he's had his echo, because it's almost time for him to have his echocardiogram again. And so they did an echo, and he had an aneurysm, same place as John's, and and people are like, how could same place? And it's like, because it's ascending, which means right when it's coming up from your heart by the root, is the most dangerous and most immediate place, because it can pull apart as it widens the valve, this kind of leaflet valve, and then you're screwed, because the blood that's supposed to be going from your heart to the rest of your body goes back and forth. And then the dissection, which is what Tom was at risk for with this aneurysm, actually doesn't take place in the heart. It doesn't take place in the valve. In the actual kind of garden hose size tube, it has 3 layers. And if the inside layer gets a little notch in it or a little tear, then the blood, because you watch a movie, somebody gets stabbed, the blood's just like blood pressure is crazy. Mm-hmm. Blood pressure is, if you think about what it takes to get the blood, whatever.
Yeah.
So at the rate it's being pumped, you can imagine there's a little tear on the inside. So then a lot of the blood starts going inside that tear, and it tears it down even further.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, I don't get it. I can't think in 3 dimensions. I'm like, okay. Have you ever had a hand-me-down jacket? I'm 5 of 5. You're 3 of 3. I told this to my friend Joel Murray, who is Bill Murray's little brother, who is 9 of 9. He's the baby. Lived in Chicago, and he got it immediately. I'm like, people are like, what do you mean? It goes into the lining, not where it's supposed to go. I'm like, you put on a jacket.
Yeah.
I would put your hand in it.
Yep.
And then your hand doesn't come out because there's a tear in the pit. Your hand is in the lining.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It never comes out the other
That
end.
happened to me with some pants the other day. I about fell and gave myself a concussion. My foot hooked on the inside.
Right?
Yeah.
We've had it.
That's exactly right.
I'm glad no one saw that.
So that like that little tear becomes this thing where the blood then is diverted into a blind alley.
Yeah, it's going where it shouldn't go.
It's going where it shouldn't go. And in some very rare cases, it can rupture to the outside, but it's deleterious enough to have it starving where it should be going, the oxygen blood. I almost made the sign of the cross, would be appropriate. And it, so Tom, with his aneurysm, had his aortic arch, which is this top of the candy cane part where his thing was, repaired. And so now there's no aneurysm there, and there's no threat of the second.
How many years ago was that?
2007.
2007. So, I mean, it's like that. We talk about breast cancer, that early detection is the best prevention. This is the same type of concept, like staying ahead of it. Obviously life is so random. I mean, any of us could walk out, get hit by a bus, anything can happen, but there's so many things. We're so blessed to live in this day and age now.
The thing is, you can get hit by lightning, you get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
But maybe you have the bus schedule.
Yeah.
Maybe you have the
good point.
Panel. So there are things, and
do what you can to prevent.
Do what you can, and family history. That's the thing that breast cancer, advocates for breast cancer and breast awareness and health really got the point across. The 2 points. No joke. But sorry, had to. But and people got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though all breast mine came back that it wasn't BRCA1, BRCA2. So it wasn't like the two big bad monsters.
Yeah.
But then when you get that report back, there are VUS, variants of unknown suspicion. So these are things that were a little different than you would usually see.
Right.
Right. In what you've tested, the genes that make up the proteins that make the health, right? Just like in the aorta. And so for breast cancer, as far as I know, there are 2 big bad wolves, and then these other ones that are still being studied.
Yep.
And so what happens with these variants of unknown suspicion is there's ongoing, and pray no more, research gets shut down because scary stuff is happening right this moment.
Right.
But one of those might pop up, and this is another one. But you have to have that cohort of people who have done their genetic testing to have that little weirdness in the hopper. Then we see that little weirdness in a lot of people who maybe even develop breast cancer at a certain time.
Right.
Or a certain way, or it's ductal, or it's lobular, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so then those characteristics can be assigned to it, and it can be one of the main things you can be tested for. Same thing is going on with us. So when John passed away, there was one gene mutation that was highly suspected and then identified as, yes, this is something that can cause the proteins to misfire, be misspelled, and not hold together. Hence the structure falls apart inside, like we're talking about, right? And it was called ACTA2, ACTA2. And that when John passed away and I reached out to Dr. Milowitz, who was the boss of this study, we started really talking, and I said, what can I do as just a person with a tiny bit of a platform before social media?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I was on the computer doing pets 5, cats 5,
Yes.
Solve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little answer, but and the thing was, we need more people in the study because you can't identify something by. And I think that she had about 300 families, and I said, "Hold my beer."
Yep.
You know, let me figure out a way. Not so much the strength is the creativity and willing to do something. People like, that's not how you do it. I'm like, I don't care.
Challenge the status quo. Yeah.
So I just did Google alerts for John Ritter for dissection, for aortic dissection, for this. And so I was getting hits. So Google alerts will send it to a specific thing for all over the country and across the world when people have died of an aortic dissection or in little towns and things. And I was just like calling people up. I would call like the funeral parlor. I was a rabble rouser.
Yeah.
I don't care. You know, especially when like a young person passes away, I'm like, no, I don't buy it. And talk to the families and get these families. And was I leaning on the big Catholic and big Mormon families? Yeah, I was. I was leaning hard on them because I knew lots of record keeping, lots of chroniclers of family, right?
Yeah.
And getting hundreds and hundreds of more people in the study and promoting more studies and then making money for the foundation to be able to fund research for this, right? And so now there are, I think, 13 or 14 gene mutations that can be for and many more in the hopper. Meredith's family as well. Meredith, who we spoke about, CEO. She dissected while she was pregnant. That baby was saved and she was saved, and she had a open chest surgery and a successful cesarean section on the same night on the same table.
Yep.
Incredible.
Yeah, that story is incredible.
Yeah.
She's
incredible. And she, so, and some people would have that survive and go, you can't tell me anything about it. I know everything about it. She is so open to like, I want to learn everything about it.
Yep.
And she found out through her research of her family that she was the 5th dissection in 4 generations.
Holy smokes.
So to keep her family safe so it doesn't sneak up on them, because if it's not going to sneak up on you, right? Like Tom found it, right?
Yeah.
My kids are at risk. They're 50-50 at risk.
Yeah.
Because it's inherited that way, which, but Meredith, of course, knew something was up, and they did research, and Dr. Milowitz was able to tell Meredith, this is the name, the MYH11, the name of the gene mutation that is causing all this death and destruction in your family for generations, probably way.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't know,
get
right?
the bus schedule.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah.
They weren't tracking this stuff.
You got to
back then.
get the bus schedule. I think that's
the question I have, I mean, we're running out of time, but I wanted to
first look both ways.
Amen.
I wanted to ask you just about, you've so eloquently explained what it was like to both go through the tragedy as a family member who experienced tragedy, and then also you being the one who yourself had this incredible health challenge with your breast cancer, and thank God that you've overcome that and that you're with us and thriving.
Thank you.
What role has hope played for you? And was there a moment where someone said something to you, maybe after John's passing, that gave you strength, and maybe even in your experience with breast cancer, where someone said something and sort of sparked some hope inside of you?
You'd think that was a thing, but I think it was factory installed in me. And every little thing that everybody said meant something to me. And there's really nothing I can pull out. I like hope, though. Hope, a little dash of hope, a little dash of denial without shutting down. Being able to not lean into the what ifs, do everything recommended by doctors, taken a dose of my own medicine, which is all I do is talk about early this and get on it. So not delaying because I got to wrap my head around it before I go to the doctor. No, get your ass and your boobs and your aorta to the doctor.
Yep.
And if you don't like, if what the doctor is saying, it does not match your level of understanding or the questions that you're asking are not getting answered, please feel free to shop around. If
Absolutely.
you can, with certain insurances, you really can't. But for us, for our thing, the hope that is given is through fellowship and community. We have aorta advocates, which is huge for us.
Peer to peer, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's important.
Peer to peer without no lecturing, no religion, no politics.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And it's just
meet each other where you are, you know?
Meet each other where you are.
Yeah.
Talk about it and remind people that they are in charge of their own bodies. They own the images from their scans.
That's true.
That kind of stuff. Because you think, oh, I don't know, this doctor did this. It's like, that's your body. The images of your body, those are your test results. See if you can, everybody should be able to have those. So if they do need to, whatever, they're like, here's what I have so far. So you don't have to start at zero again.
That's so good. Well, for people really, I want you to tell us where we can find out more. If there are people that are inspired by you today, if there are people that are like, oh my gosh, I feel this could be me, or I know somebody, where do they go to find out more information?
Our website is pretty freaking cool for me, the boomer who has no idea what they're doing, but I've learned a lot of the art there I worked on, but it's johnritterfoundation.org. And the name of the foundation is John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health. And it is why someday that name might change, but for now, Aortic Health, it's just like, it's like saying breast health. Like there's a lot around it.
Yeah.
Aortic health is being healthy, how you think about it, how you speak about it, and awareness of this little part of your body that gets hardly any love.
Yeah.
And then gets mistaken for a heart attack, gets mistaken for all of these different things, this kind of anatomical orphan that once you start talking about it, you guys today, I promise you, and of course, this outreach that we're doing here, God bless you, because people, we will be getting letters and calls, but even just in conversations, oh, Amy Yasbeck, who's that? Oh yeah, you don't know her. She was John Ritter's. Oh, John Ritter died of a heart attack. No, he did not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's easy for people, you know, placeholder.
What is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that right there, people come up to me all the time and it's like, I was heartbroken when John had his heart attack. And I'm like, he never did have a heart attack. Oh, how did he die? And that's the other thing. When you're having to talk about it all the time, that's the strength.
Amen.
Well, you're
denial.
You're converting someone into giving them knowledge, like they could save their life, right? So even that mistake is a chance to educate.
When you're talking, you're right. But as you know, because your mom, when you're talking about someone you know, someone you love, whether it's yourself or someone, you have to, you can't start, it feels inauthentic, and it is, if you start making the name John Ritter or like your mom's name becoming like a product.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
Or a thing where it's like, here's my thing. I mean, as I was talking to you, I was getting little gut punches.
Yeah.
Which we should.
Yeah.
Because you can't be glib. You can be fun. You can be sweet. You can be sincere. But everybody's journey is like right there in their face, no matter how far
that's right
down the road, medically, spiritually, emotionally, chronologically you are from that moment of impact when somebody dies, or that moment of impact when you're diagnosed. That's still in you, whether it's trauma that you have not processed or or just a memory where you would rather not go.
Yeah.
When you're in the work that we do, you guys, you have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go there with people to as John would say, everyone's connected by this golden thread of humanity, and you have to kind of go bing and like pluck that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody to feel that you are safe and sincere. And so it's not without cost. And I think maybe that is a kind of the thing about strength or bravery is there's no bravery without fear, you know, and there's no courage without some kind of cost. Yeah. So you have to be willing to incur that.
You're right.
And I'm happy to in John's name. And he would have done it. Oh my God, if he had survived or if this had happened to me, he would be, you know, except he'd be falling over this chair instead of sitting on it.
He would do it in his own way, right?
That's right.
He would have,
exactly.
Well, you know, you said, just now what you were saying is so true about loss. When I was talking about my brothers earlier, I lost my middle brother a few years ago unexpectedly. And he was the one that we used to watch.
I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. No, that's good. And thank you. We bonded over the TV. We bonded over Wings. Right. He was he was the reason why I watched Wings. And Brent loved Wings so much.
Saint Brent?
Brent was his name. And rest in peace, Brent.
Saint Brent. He's an angel.
Yeah. And so Brent, loved Wings. He loved the sitcoms from back then. And I've, even today, getting to talk about him there is that twang of pain in your heart, but also it's like a joy, and it's the hardest thing to explain to people, right? Because it's like you brought him back into the room. And I know I could see on your face that when we were talking, and especially when you were telling us about the elevator anecdote, and I saw you bring John into the room. And
100%.
And I think that's so beautiful. And I think that when we approach these subjects that are so heavy, and we go through these experiences, there is so much purpose that comes from being able to help other people who are in that raw place, or when they're in that scary place and they haven't gone through it. Yeah. And so to that end, I just cannot thank you enough for you sharing your heart today. It was so beautiful and so inspirational.
Sharing your journey. I mean, come on.
Well, this is how we can help each other. The community is everything. I mean, when you're talking about, how important that is, like to basically create the community around you, it starts with your family, and it starts with the importance of building, friendships that last, and then leaning into each other. And, it's a very divisive time that we live in. There's a lot of anger, and of course, and this has been this way for so many years. It's human history. It's a human condition, but we have to find the threads that can connect us all together, and that override politics and war and all these other, and disease and all these horrible things, and find the humanity in each other. So I wanted to thank you for that. And just to conclude, I would love to know what's next for you. Like, what are you working on, and what has you excited just kind of about the future? I've
been working with so many young people people like Generation X, Generation Z. I love them. I am not the kind of person that's like, they don't know how to dial a phone. Of course not. Of course not. And look what we have just put them all through.
Yeah.
I thought was like, when I grew up during the Vietnam War, and it was horrible, and people were losing people. Look at the stuff that's gone on.
Yeah.
Let's look at their phones. Stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so much to learn. The trauma, they're processing our trauma and their own and personal. Okay.
Yeah. And
I've been working, having so much fun doing like short films. I just did a feature length film in Florida, and the director, writer, producer, like 30 years old. And it just means so much to me to know that the business is so much more, and I mean this in the Latin or Greek, whatever, democratic. where you can make your own content, you know?
Yeah.
And there's still, of course, the giant choose me and auditioning and that has never been any fun. But also it's like professional photographers, like everybody thinks they're a photographer now. Guess what? They are.
Yeah, I know.
That's evolution.
Yeah.
They are. And so there are people who maybe would have never been able to afford a, giant fancy freaking camera, but somehow they on their phone, wait a minute, I find beauty here. I find irony here. I love it. I love everybody creating content unless they're being dicks about it.
Yeah. Well, hey,
well said.
We love you. And we know how precious and valuable your time is. And the one thing I just want to leave you with, we're your fans for life, and whatever we can do, whatever this show can do for the John Ritter Foundation, you count us in, because it's just too important to not be a part of it. And I know, right? We'll see you in the airport for sure. But we love you, and thank you for your time and your vulnerability and your wisdom. And it is just so fun to get to know you and to share different sides of you with our family. And I'm going to get an Amy Yasbeck tattoo now to match yours.
You're going to do the left and right bicep?
Lower back. Yeah.
Lower back.
Oh my God.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, I'm gonna go get him. I'm gonna reach out to the mermaid community and get some custom flip tail and flippers.
Man, this guy's a billionaire.
I'm not even kidding you. You have no idea.
The mermaid
Check
black
out
market.
Mercon. I want to be
Mercon, of course. There's
That's
a con
where we'll
for
see
everything.
you. Mercon, yeah.
Is there a con?
I would love to.
Just like convicts to go and hang out.
I'm sure.
That's like prison, I guess.
I'm sure. Well, hey, we love you, Amy. Thank you for your time.
Convention.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Convention.
It's like Comic-Con.
Yeah, Comic-Con.
Con-Con.
Not like Con-Con. We're not going to prison.
Yeah, Con-Con.
Not on the first date. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Amy, and I hope you have an absolutely beautiful day out there. And thanks to our team. We're going to head to the outro now.
Yep. Love you so much.
See ya. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye. What an exciting episode with the one and only Amy Yasbeck. There was a time where we only dreamed of having guests of that caliber on our show, and I just can't believe that we were able to make it happen. Big thank you to Amy and everybody that's involved with the John Ritter Foundation and finally making this happen. It was an honor to tell your story, to pull back the curtain on some of Hollywood's best kept secrets, to be able to celebrate John's legacy, and certainly thank you for being brave and courageous and sharing your breast cancer journey with all of us. You may notice that I'm sitting here with the one and only Cowboy Kevin today. Pretty important to note that Cowboy Kevin injured his back in what could only be described as an incredibly traumatic injury. He sneezed and pulled a muscle in his back. So, Lord be with Kevin. We are praying for you. We hope you come back soon, preferably not in the cowboy outfit. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Hope Ignited, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.